If you're anything like me, you've struggled with questions like, how much silver should I have? Do I have enough? Can I even have too much? And why does Mrs. Stacker keep asking me to stop turning the garage into Fort Knox? The key is always remembering that buying gold and silver is not about the dollar value. It's about measuring your wealth in ounces and not dollars. This is especially important to remember after the last few weeks. During these moments of extreme volatility, you have to remind yourself that your ounces are like an anchor in the storm. And that's why I've come up with the minimum number of ounces, which is, give me 2 minutes and I'll give you the number. It's important because the reason for that number is actually some ways more important than the actual number. And let me explain. What is good, Stackers University? It is so good to have you here. It's been a little bit of a bumpy ride for us over the last few weeks, but I'm here to remind you that it's all good. Nothing has fundamentally changed. All we are experiencing is the normal bucking of the bull during a bull market. And remember, all that bull wants to do is to throw you off. What we went through is just part of a normal ABC Elliott wave correction that was amplified by some unexpected kind of optimism that came off the back of the Trump election. I know it didn't feel good going from 27.75 to 25.50-ish and what felt like, overnight. But let's start by putting this latest pullback into its proper context. Look at this chart and you will see that since October 23 of last year and October 28th of this year, gold was up almost 58%. Silver was up almost 76% from its lows in March of 2023. I mean, come on, y'all. Gold and silver were due for an inevitable correction, which is actually very healthy for the market. While you think you want price to go straight up, you really don't. And as crazy as that sounds, I find moments like these are great to pause and think about the big picture, my big goals, and my exit strategy. I find this incredibly helpful because the alternative is to focus on the short-term price gyrations, which makes it more likely for you to panic and even fear sell. As I shared in my last video, we are riding a bull market and that bull just wants to buck you off. Regardless of what happens, constantly reminding yourself that we have to measure our wealth in ounces rather than currency is a key. But why? Because as we just experienced, the US dollar measurement of our gold and silver value can fluctuate based on a number of variables that are completely outside of our control. But our ounces always remain the same. As Mike Maloney puts it, price doesn't shake you out if you're looking at how many ounces you have. Ounces sort of determine how much you can buy in the future. And let me say that again in a very clear way. You keep your focus on your ounces because one, it provides stability during market fluctuations, helping you stay calm when prices dip. And two, it gives you a clear picture of your future purchasing power, especially when it comes to big ticket items like real estate. In fact, let's focus on real estate because using real estate was how I actually determined that you need at least 750 ounces of silver. There's your answer, folks. What really started me down this path was a conversation with my nephew who had quietly stacked up almost 500 ounces of silver over the last year or so. And he was frustrated that he hadn't started earlier. And then he asked me, how much silver do I really need to own? I then explained that silver is where most of us start because of the price point, but the end game is always to hold gold. He then asked, well, why didn't I buy gold from the beginning? And that's when the conversation really turned to a fun conversation. I explained how gold and silver are very different metals with different uses, returns, and price behaviors. And because of that, everyone should have some silver. But primarily silver has to be used as a trade vehicle. And I know that's not popular with some of y'all, but it's just the reality. Price fluctuates so much with silver that you have to take advantage of those moments when you have those price spikes. So he asked me again, well, then how much is enough? And that's when I told him you need enough silver that you can trade it for real estate. While I love stacking my precious metals, we all know that where our world is headed, which means we're going to need as many real assets as possible. And while gold and silver are real assets, as you've heard me say, every dollar we have is an employee, and their job is to go out and get us more employees. Well, with gold and silver, that's a little bit harder. Ultimately, our financial well-being and freedom lies in us holding real assets. And I've shown you this chart before, but just look at this ratio of real assets to financial assets. And that ratio is at incredibly low levels, which presents an opportunity for us. Real assets is how you become wealthy. It's how you win this financial game. The challenge for most of us stackers is we start stacking and then we stop planning for the next step of what to do with that stack. I get it, because frankly, the idea of trading my metals for paper dollars It makes me want to throw up in my mouth. That is why our wealth is actually measured in ounces and real assets like real estate. I know I can hear some of you groaning right now about how overpriced real estate has become, but is it really overpriced? And how do we know that? If you're measuring real estate in dollars, then I would totally agree with you. But what if we measure the real estate in real assets like silver or gold? Now, let's take a trip down memory lane, which will make this point much clearer and help you see the power of ounces and why we all need at least 750 ounces of silver. In 2003, the average home prices felt expensive, not only in dollars, but because it took over 50,000 ounces of silver to buy an average US priced home. Fast forward to 2011, and that number had dropped dramatically to around 6,000 ounces of silver. During that 8-year period from 2003 to 2011, as you can see on this chart, silver increased in value by 900% versus the average US home price. That's a mind-blowing change, especially when you consider that the average home price in 2003 was $246,300, and in 2011 it was $267,000, which it was a price difference of around $20,000. This really highlights the power of holding silver and gold as wealth building tools. When the ratio is high, silver is undervalued compared to real estate, but when it's low, that may be the time for you to consider converting some of that shiny metal into real estate. And this is how we can truly determine if real estate is cheap or expensive, because dollars get printed into existence, but gold and silver remain what they are, gold and silver. And I know some of you are thinking, but why in the world would I want to convert my real money in gold and silver into real estate? Well, besides diversification of real assets, which is important, it offers a number of key advantages. First, you get passive income. Rental properties can provide a steady stream of cash flow, and that cash flow is actually considered passive income in the eyes of the IRS, which means it gets the best taxation at the lowest rates. You get tax advantages. In addition to the income that you generate being taxed at the lowest rates, real estate offers numerous tax benefits. And that means your passive income from real estate can then be used to buy back or buy more silver. And this is how your money starts to make more money for you, which is one of the problems we have with gold and silver is it doesn't go out and necessarily get you more employees. This is one way to do it. Next benefit is leverage. You can use a small amount of capital to control a large asset. And with that, the appreciation that you get over time as property values tend to increase. But remember, in real estate, the increase is on the total property value, not the amount that you put down, which means the return on your investment is amplified. So you may only get a 3 to 5% appreciation on the home, but you may have only put 10% down to get the full appreciation of that 3 to 5%. Let's go back to the chart of average home prices versus silver as a ratio. And that we've seen that ratio go as high as 50,000 ounces of silver, and it's currently at 20,000 ounces of silver. And we've also seen it go as low as 2,000 ounces of silver. But let's use a reasonable number of 5,000 ounces of silver as our target to buy an average price home. If your average cost of silver, let's say, is $25 an ounce for a total cost basis of $125,000, and that was enough to buy you the average price home in terms of converting your ounces into paper again, would you think that the home was overpriced? Notice, I didn't talk about the purchase price of the property. Instead, I focused on the number of ounces and your cost basis for those ounces. We have to remind ourselves that our wealth is measured in ounces and not in dollars. That doesn't mean you shouldn't consider the price of the property or where we are in the real estate cycle. But that aside, we have to focus on what our metals can do for us, and that is how we really measure our wealth. And how many ounces you continue to acquire, that's what's really important. It's this mentality is why really good investors don't get freaked out about daily, weekly, or even monthly price gyrations. Your focus has to be on something bigger, your ounces. Now, let's take this example one step forward. The beauty of real estate is that you actually don't have to use all 5,000 ounces of silver to buy that property. Instead, you can simply put 10% down or 20% down and get a mortgage for the remaining balance. That means instead of needing 5,000 ounces of silver, you only really need 500 to $1,000 in order to get a mortgage to rent out the property, collect monthly passive income, use that income to begin buying back the ounces you just sold, utilize unique write-offs for tax real estate so that you can pay zero in taxes, and then on top of that, have the property appreciate 3 to 5% annually. My friends, what I just shared with you is one of the ways that I plan to use my silver when the time comes. It's by far one of the best wealth building opportunities that we have, and one of the best ways to use silver. The problem most people face is they try to save their way into wealth and assets. And as we know, the dollar is losing value every day, while real assets are going up in price. This is why it's so hard for the average person to keep up. Your silver purchases have unlocked the door to some of the best wealth building opportunities that most people will never have. You don't have to like real estate. That's fine. Buy a business instead. Buy land. Convert your silver into gold. You have to do whatever you think is best. But the real value in silver is these extreme moments when it has these run-ups, and that presents you with an opportunity to capture that. So how many ounces do you really need? Well, it really depends on your goal and your local real estate market. But I say at least 750 ounces. I based that on the lower end of the ratio of needing 500 ounces, and I added another 250 because we should always have a little bit of silver in hand just in case. What's important is that you start to think about your future plans with silver, and I strongly encourage you to calculate your own freedom number in ounces based on your specific goals. No matter what, we don't need to complicate this. We have to focus on growing our wealth in terms of ounces and real assets. As gold and silver owners, we know the strategy isn't about getting rich quick. It's about using silver and gold as our wealth preservation and accumulation tools. And when possible, converting those into cash flowing assets at the right time. In the comments section, do you have a financial freedom number in terms of gold and silver ounces? Are gold and silver a really good buy now? Or simply put an A+ in the comments to let everyone know that you always stack smarter and never stop learning.